Hey, this is Anney.
And Samantha.
And welcome to Stuff I'll Never Told You, a production of iHeartRadio. And today we are so thrilled to once again be joined by a friend of the show, hopefully real life friend. Yes. We can never meet in person.
In real life. I'd love that.
Oh my gosh, me too. Jo Piazza. Welcome, Jo.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on. You have been on the show before.
I have. It's been a minute, and it's been too many minutes, I think, because I love chatting with you, and we should just be friends in real life too. We should just do this in person, like in a bar. That would be fun.
That would be a delight. I was going to say, for me, because I was not on when you came on, but I'm like, you're a celebrity to me, because I'm like, in our world, podcast world, you're such a big name. So I'm like, ooh, we're going to get the insight. We're going to get the real pro tip here.
Because I've been doing this forever, and mostly because it's the only skill that I have. I can make podcasts and I can write books, and in the zombie apocalypse or the chat GPT apocalypse, I have nothing left. Like, I have no skills. I'll just be irrelevant, to be honest.
I don't know. Those are pretty big skills. Like, someone needs to tell the stories when all of us but one person dies.
Truth.
You have to leave that story.
I just pictured me running around chasing zombies with like a microphone, with like my Zoom microphone, being like, hey,
how do you feel today?
How do you feel about the end of the world?
You get on social media today?
Brains.
Brains.
Well, oh my gosh. You have been on here before, but it has been a minute, yes. But for people who don't remember, because that was before the apocalypse, or missed that episode, can you introduce yourself to our listeners?
Hi, listeners. I am Jo Piazza. As we mentioned, I've been making podcasts for a while, for about seven years now. I started out making the podcast Committed, and now I produce Under the Influence, which is about all of the ways that the internet and social media are ruining our lives on a daily basis. And I'm also an author. I write novels about kick women doing adventurous things. And the latest one is The Sicilian Inheritance, which is just a delicious romp and murder mystery set in Sicily that comes out in April.
Ooh.
So the phrase delicious romp makes me know that you really are an author.
Exactly. Just a delicious romp, everyone.
Of a murder mystery.
I'll put that in my
of a murder
book.
Mystery.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Okay, well, on that note, can you tell us more about the book? Because I was reading the description and I'm very interested.
Oh my gosh. Guys, it's so good. So I will tell you this, and I don't say that lightly, but The Sicilian Inheritance is the best book that I've ever written. I've written a lot of books at this point. I finally just sat down and I wrote the book that I would want to read. I want to read something that is fun, but also that doesn't make me feel gross or bad about myself. So not just a bunch of smut, even though we've got some smut in the book, but not too much. And that you walk away feeling kind of smart. So it's set in two different timelines, and it's loosely based on my own great-grandmother's murder in Sicily about 100 years ago. And the modern day protagonist returns to Sicily to try to solve her own great-grandmother's murder. And they both are confronted with the nefarious forces of the modern day mafia. And they're both strong, headstrong women trying to make it in very male-dominated fields. Serafina from 1908 is trying to be a doctor. Sarah is a restaurateur who, she's a chef in the very male restaurant world. And it's all set on the beautiful, rugged, and sometimes slightly terrifying island of Sicily.
Ooh, okay.
Can you guys tell I'm still perfecting my elevator pitch?
No, that was great.
You got me hooked. I'm like, wait, what? I have so many questions. Because also, like, you said it loosely, and I was like, loosely based on what? How much? How much of it?
So loosely based, actually. So it's really, and we're about to get into podcast territory here. So all I knew was that my great-great-grandmother, Lorenza, had been murdered back in Sicily. Her husband came to America. All of her children came to America. She stayed behind. We didn't know why, maybe to sell land or because it was safer for a while. and she was killed before she came over. It's just family lore. And for all I knew, it could have been made up because my family's Italian American and they're liars. They just like, they make up stories, right? And so I didn't know, but I was fascinated by this idea of this woman alone in Sicily. And I based my book off that without knowing anything else. But because I'm a massive ambition podcast monster, I decided to create a true crime podcast where I try to solve the actual murder.
Oh.
That will be coming out in March before Sicilian Inheritance. The book comes out in April. And we went back to Sicily this summer to try to solve the murder. And I'm closer to doing it. Like I know I found out so much by digging around in town records. Like we found like the entry for her death in the Book of Deaths in this little Sicilian town. And my producer, Kate Osborne, came with me and she recorded everything. So Sicilian Inheritance will be your next favorite novel and also maybe your next favorite podcast. Again, I'm a monster. I'm a content monster.
I love it. No, that was going to be my next question. I was like, did you actually try to solve this murder? And here we are with a great teaser. And I'm so sad I have to wait until next year. But damn, that's an adventure.
It's actually an adventure. And I genuinely think all of us kind of want an adventure right now. Life has been weird, so weird lately that I just wanted to create some things that would bring people joy and the right amount of escapism. And I think that we managed to do it. So I'm really excited about these things coming into the world.
That's amazing.
So I have many follow-up questions about that, but one of them
bring them.
Oh, I will. So you have written a lot of books. You have written a lot of books in a lot of different genres.
Yeah.
How was this different? You've said like it was nice to get to write something you really wanted to read, but also every time I watch like any kind of mystery or a murder mystery, I'm always like, how did you know the ending when you started out, like leaving all these clues?
No, I did not.
Okay, please explain.
Nope. And so I am not woo-woo about anything, except now after doing all of this research, I think I may be like a Sicilian witch or something, because some of the stuff that I wrote without in the novel, again, fiction, it's the Sicilian Inheritance is fiction. But then when I started reporting out my great-great-grandmother's murder, some of it was the same. Isn't that creepy?
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
It's creepy. But so when I write, and sometimes I co-write with another person, my co-writer, Christine Pride, and we've done two novels together, We Are Not Like Them, and You Were Always Mine, and she's an outliner. And I drive her crazy because I won't outline. I have a general idea, and then I sit down and I write 2,000 words, and I don't know what's going to happen next. Like have a but with the Sicilian Inheritance especially, I did not know the ending. Like it just popped into my head, and I'm only woo-woo about the fact that I think that ideas like come when you just like start putting in the work, when you start like creating the characters in your head. And it just started coming to me in bits and pieces. And the ending's a real banger, but it was not where I thought we were going.
Okay.
Yeah. So I know, but most writers that I know like to plot and outline the whole thing and like really know exactly what's going to happen. It does drive my editors crazy sometimes too, because they're like, so what's going to happen at the end of this book that we just bought? And I'm like, I don't know.
Stay tuned.
Your guess is as good as mine.
There will be an ending, but I don't know what it is. They're like, oh, great. We have a lot of faith in you. Okay.
Well, by now, yes, obviously, because you've written a ton of books that have been successful. So I'm sure they're like, yeah, okay, we know we're going to get it. We don't love this process, but we know we're
very anxious with this process, but we will get it.
That's interesting because I sort of do both. Samantha knows I'm a planner. Like I plan and I outline. But a lot of times when I write, I'm like, you just have to write and see what happens.
That's
and then...
the thing, right? Like you don't know what's. I think that there's magic in it. I really do. I think there's magic in the process, and that the reader can also kind of feel that magic. But I will say that I read some novels and I'm like, oh, I can tell you were like sticking to a script. Like you had an idea of where this was going and like you just wrote to it. And that's fine, but they do feel a little less magical to me.
Right. But then on the other side, you can read things and you're like, you clearly had no plan and thought this was such a moving ending, but it had, there was nothing that led up to it.
But it didn't deliver.
Yeah, so it's a balance. It's a balance.
It's a balance. It's a balance. Although I will say, so I have the book is out with early readers right now, and I've got a lot of people telling me they end up in tears, and I'm like, good. That's what I want to make you cry. I want to make you cry. So yeah,
one of those.
That's fun. Like
it's fun, but
the
a good
reaction.
Cry. A good cry at the end, right? Like you're just like, all right, I was invested in this, and so I had a good cry. It also makes people hungry. So it's so filled with food. And when I wrote most of it before I went back to Sicily this summer, but the only things that I added, and I kept pulling it back from my editor, were more and more food. Like I would have one meal and be like, oh my gosh, we have to put these like buttery, delicious like cornettos in there. And she's like, really? And I'm like, yeah, it matters. So I'm telling people, like I'm issuing a warning. I'm like, don't read this book if you don't have access to food, like right next to you, like cheese, a nice cheese plate, because you will be starving the second you start reading it.
You're going to eat all things. Well, when you described it as a delicious romp, I was going to ask, is it including a lot of descriptors for Italian food? Because that's like the first thing that popped into my head. But I was like, no. That's too cliche.
It is so cliche. And that's the thing. I'm like, you know what? I love a good cliche.
I love it.
Filled with food, filled with wine. There's like a sexy Italian dude who's kind of mysterious. Like it's got all of the things that you want. And
from an Italian
at this point, I'm like, I just want to deliver, man. Like, pick up this book and you're like, I kind of like, this is what I hope for. You're going to get it.
Right. And if it's really well written, that descriptor is going to make you want that pasta immediately. Like, I'm going to need to fly to Sicily to get this pasta that she's writing about.
Well, so when I do all my book clubs, because I've written a lot of books and I've done a lot of book events, and they can be really boring. And I don't want to do boring book events anymore. So I'm going to be doing Sicilian wine tasting, cannoli making, pasta making classes, or just events where we just eat and we could talk about the book, but we don't have to. We could just eat food and stare at each other.
So you're going to give us a personal invite to this, right?
Yes.
That's what I heard.
You're there.
As friends.
Yes, because we're friends in real life now. Exactly. I'm just, nothing, I think now that in my approach to middle age, I have decided I'm not going to do things that don't bring me joy anymore. And like just standing in front of a crowd and reading a book, I hate it. So I want to stand in front of a crowd and eat a cannoli or eat 9 cannolis. That's what makes me happy.
As you talk about the book, maybe not.
Yeah.
As it would make everybody else happy as well.
Yeah, exactly. I know.
Who doesn't want a cannoli?
Everyone wants a cannoli. Like what brings my readers joy? Food. So yes, I will bring that to them. I'm like really upsetting all bookstores now, but I want to do it in your bookstore. I just want to bring the food there into the bookstore.
Have a table.
Yes.
Well, we went to a book reading one time recently, and we expected at least drinks.
Never.
And when there was no drinks, I was like, what the? No, I'm leaving.
It was quite comical.
Blows my mind that 90% of the bookstore events that I have either, they've been my events or I've gone to other people's events, 90% of them don't have any wine. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. No one wants, it's a crime. It's like what I compare it to children's birthday parties that don't have adult beverages. I go to a lot of them because I've been breeding for 7 years. So I have a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and an almost 2-year-old. And when I show up at a kid's birthday party, like at a play space or something, they don't have wine for me. I'm like, what do you want me to do for an hour here? Right. I don't know any of you people.
And stare sober.
Stare at my children sober, make small talk with other parents. I'm not here for that. I am not here for that. I have my 4-year-old's birthday party this week, which we just like go in the park across the street. Like I will not throw like a bar mitzvah level party for these children at this point, but I will make a signature cocktail for that event. I will, indeed. For the grown-ups. For the grown-ups. Yeah, it's really just pizza, piñatas, and a paloma is what it's going to be.
The 3 Ps.
That's one of my favorite drinks.
The 3 Ps.
Very important.
Delightful.
So important.
And that's the one I would go to. Like, I typically don't go to gatherings in general. If they have children, I'm probably not going to come just because I'm like, I don't know what to do there.
Fair point.
But if they offer drinks,
yeah.
I'm going to come.
Okay. I'll be there.
It's the same with weddings, and I hate it, but it's like, wait, is there
I hate
alcohol
weddings
there?
too.
No?
Yeah,
okay, bye.
Yeah, you don't have open bar? Off. With our wedding, we decided to keep the bar open during the vows. So Glynis McNichol, who, is like my collaborator on so many things and my best friend, she married us. But she was encouraging people. She's like, if you'd like to go get some more champagne, cool. Like, this is part of it isn't really for you, it's for them. So like, mill about, get some more drinks. And like, people still say it was the best wedding they've ever been to.
Yeah. Agreed. Former host, Kristen Conger, I went to her wedding and they had a pre-bar opening so that we wouldn't just stand there and we would have drinks when they were walking down the aisle. I was like, yes, this I'm in favor of.
Yes.
Let's have it.
Yes, exactly. I had champagne while we were sitting up there. Well, yeah. We did a Quaker ceremony. We're not Quakers. I'm just a fan of them. And in a Quaker ceremony, we brought in all of my favorite cultural and religious tropes. Like we like sat on chairs and people hoisted us up, and we're definitely not Jewish, but I have so many Jewish friends that they were so skilled at it that they're like, yeah, of course we want to do this at your wedding.
We'll help you.
But we borrowed parts of the Quaker ceremony where anyone can stand up at any time and say anything about you. So it's like the whole crowd does your vows with you, and it's really weirdly beautiful. Like, and people say the wackiest things. Like, my husband's much older half brother stood up and was like, I will always help both of you sort out your frequent flyer miles. And I was like, thank you.
That is important. Yeah.
And also appreciated. Like, I feel like a welcome member of your family now.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Like, this entire wedding sounds like another adventure that I'm like, did you write about this as well as part of like a novel? Because it should be in a novel.
I did write. I wrote about it. I wrote the book, How to Be Married, where
That's right.
I traveled around the world asking for advice on how to be a married person because it's so weird. And I wrote a little bit about the wedding in there, but it was just a good wedding. It was just fun. Again, like, why would you do something that's not going to be fun?
Yes.
I don't get it.
Agreed.
Yeah. And now I'm kicking myself that I've never had a night where I just have a cheese plate and wine and read a book. Why have I not done that? That sounds amazing.
Right? Exactly. You deserve that. Everybody deserves that. I'm going to start randomly, when people start pre-ordering the book, if they let me know, if they like send me a receipt, I'm going to make sure that a cheese plate is delivered to their house when the book gets delivered. Like,
I was going to say, we have time with your book.
I'll pre-order it right now.
That's the perfect beginning.
Yeah, pre-order it.
Right.
And then you'll be like, oh my gosh, this cheese plate from De Bruno Brothers just arrived. I guess it's time to sit down and read the Sicilian Inheritance and eat some cheese.
That sounds so good.
Okay, now that makes me want to order like 5 so I can get 5 different cheese plates. Not to buy the cheese plates. I want the book.
Yeah.
Yes, please. To have it the special delivered from the author. Yeah. Because I bought her book.
Because you could. Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to do this.
Oh my gosh. I'm so excited about it, honestly.
So with the book, has any of your family read it yet?
Yeah, they have. My mom has read it. I just gave her, in fact, she stole a galley from my house. All of a sudden, I had limited galleys and one was missing. And I'm like, Mom, did you just take this? And she's like, yeah, I did it. And I'm like, fine, but like, I might have to reuse it. I might have to give it out. Like, maybe don't eat cheese with your copy of the book, but
no wine. Right. White wine only.
Yeah, white wine only. So she's texting me constantly to be like, oh my God, this is really good. And I'm like, why do you sound surprised in all of your texts? And like, I know how to write a book at this point. But then also she's like, wait, is this person Chiro, that guy that we had when we were in Sicily? And I'm like, no, it's a totally different person. It's fiction. It's a novel. And but she likes it so far. She's very into it. And my family is also very into the fact that I'm solving the murder because all of them are on the podcast. I invited all of them to come on the podcast to tell their version of the story, all of which are completely different. And my Uncle Jimmy is the best because he starts out our conversation saying, Joanna, I can't believe that you're digging up these old wounds, and
oh no,
this could be really dangerous. Like I can't go back to Sicily and end this vendetta. And I'm like, what are you talking about, Uncle Jimmy? You're a 80-year-old judge in Iowa. Like, you're not going to Sicily to do anything.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So he's sounding full gangster at this point.
Because he still smokes 9 packs of Marlboros a day. Again, judge in Iowa. And and the whole family, everyone, some people are like, well, she was definitely a witch and that's why she was killed. And other people are like, well, it was the mafia and that's what happened. It was a hit job. But I was in Sicily doing the research, but I also worked with Ellis Island, and they're amazing. Their researchers are bad. So they could pull the exact dates and ship manifests for when all of her children came and her husband. And they also checked to see if her husband went back to see if maybe he was the one that murdered her. There are all these little things, and they got weirdly invested in it too. By the end, they're like, well, I think this might be what happened.
Everybody had a theory. I love that.
Everybody has a theory. And I have a couple theories. Kate, my producer, and I are going to go back, I think, in January and do some final digging with the police reports are really hard to find if they exist at all, but they might, because Italians love keeping records. The coolest thing really was we found what is their book of deaths, which is a handwritten book with every death recorded in the town. It doesn't say how they died. Wow. That's the thing. Oh. But there are 2 books of deaths, and I'm not giving too much away here. One book is for people that died in the home of natural causes, and the other book is for people that died outside of the home of unnatural causes. And she was in the second book.
Huh.
Yeah.
So there is a bigger mystery.
Yeah. Yeah. So she was definitely was not natural causes. The mystery is indeed there. So that's what and we know where she died. We went to the place where she died.
Okay, did I miss it? Did you actually solve it? Or
we haven't solved it yet. I'm still on the road. Okay. I'm still on the road to solving it. No, so we're going back in January.
Have multiple seasons.
I think that we're going to have some good answers in this first season that'll start in March. For multiple seasons, I do want to do other family mysteries, though, because I feel like so many families have unanswered weird questions that, if we can solve family mysteries for them, that could be fun.
Yeah, I mean, this is an intriguing and fascinating journey, especially since it's your great-grandmother on top of that.
And we found so many crazy cool pictures of her too. She looks I'll send them to you when we get off. She looks like a badass. Yes. She looks like she could kill you with her eyes.
So maybe she was a witch, which is even better.
Maybe she was a witch. I know. Yeah.
If you find out that she's a witch, you have to take that title on. Somehow put that into
It's me. It's me. I'll put it on my business cards. I have no shame anymore. Jo Piazza, Sicilian witch. Hi.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm in the lineage of witches. We're good.
In the lineage of witches. Exactly.
That's amazing. Well, I'm excited to hear both the podcast and read this book, because that sounds phenomenal. So I'm also excited for the cheese plate and the wine that goes with both.
Oh, well, and also Jo Piazza showing up at your house in cozy pajamas with both of them, being like, "Hey,
yes, please,
it's time to read."
That sounds so
That's the way
nice.
to do it. That's Anney does that.
Yeah.
Oh, she'll just show up with pajama pants and just
I will.
chill.
Do you really? Do you Kimmy Gibbler? I call it Gibblering from Full House, where you just show up unexpectedly at a friend's house.
Never unexpected.
I try not to do the unexpected
always
part.
in pajama pants.
Yeah.
Pajamas, so.
Maybe last minute.
And when I was a kid, my friends and I used to do that. We would just read together.
Yeah.
So I would be very into it.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
I don't think it would surprise me if I saw you at the door with you were like, "Hey, I'm here." I'm like, "Okay, come on."
Yeah. Hey, great. Let's sit on the couch. All I want to do now is sit on the couch with my friends, or have low-key hangs with my friends. One of my friends, I ran into her. We were both working at a coffee shop the other day. And she's like, "I'm going to get my nails done. Do you want to get your nails done?" I was like, "Yeah, I do." And then we just walked around and did errands together. And that was really fun.
Yes.
It was really,
that's the perfect day.
Yeah, it was the perfect day.
Mm-hmm.
It's perfect hang.
It is nice.
And I love that.
You have a friend.
There's so much. I'm, again, very excited about this book. I'm very excited about this whole concept because it's such a deeper meaning.
Yeah.
It's not, even though it's fiction, is bigger than fiction.
Yeah.
That means it's just expanding. It continues to grow. But kind of in general, again, like I said before, you are to me kind of the celebrity podcaster in my world, because I knew your name before I jumped in. I knew about your shows. Committed was an amazing show.
It was so good. I loved
it. It was so amazing. Like the concept was so amazing.
Yeah, the people were so good.
You as a podcaster, you really do bring in some brilliant adventures in itself, like in these conversations that you have, including what you're working on right now, which is Under the Influence. Can you talk a little bit about that podcast?
Yeah, Under the Influence is also a ton of fun. I started it 3 years ago when I had my second baby, or I'm like, oh my gosh, it must be 4 years ago because I'm having her Pinatas Paloma's birthday party tomorrow.
Amazing.
Yeah, 4 years ago. Wow. So she wouldn't sleep. She was a really crappy sleeper. And I would hold her because all I could do at night while she was screaming is hold her. But then my only appendage available was my thumb. So I'd also be scrolling through Instagram because I'm a very, involved and present parent. And all I was getting served on Instagram were picture perfect images of influencer moms in their beautiful white linen dresses with their all white houses. None of them were covered in pee or puke or anything. And like their kids were all very well behaved. And my kids are feral animals. And I wanted to start reporting on it because I was so confused by it. And the original intention of Under the Influence was to expose this world of mom influencers, to be like, this is all bull. And some of it is. And we discovered that in the first season. Some of the world of mom influencers and influencers in general is absolutely bullshit. But we learned a lot more about what it means. And so many women are dropping out of the workforce because the workforce is not kind to women and mothers, and becoming content producers so they can be entrepreneurs and work for themselves. And we learned a lot about how the algorithm in all social media platforms is constantly manipulating all of our brains and telling us what to think and telling us how they think we should be. And so the podcast just expanded from there into looking at all kinds of digital influence, all kinds of social media, everything from teachergram to nursegram to sobrietygram. And we relaunched 2 months ago, going from seasonal to weekly. I now do 2 shows a week of Under the Influence. And we're just doing interviews with everyone from trad wives who are conservative Christian influencers who portray womanhood as these ideals from the 1950s, to experts who will tell you how to talk to your kids about sexting and in a really empowering way. And it's so fun. I learned something in every episode. And I think it's really important for us to cover influence and cover social media the same way that journalists would cover anything else, because it impacts way more of our lives than any of us want to admit. In the same way that I used to be a celebrity journalist, and I thought that job was very important because celebrities do have such a huge impact on humanity and culture and what people think, that they deserve a check and balance system. And I think influencers deserve that now too. So we're trying to do that on the show, with also a dose of joy and hilarity. So I also recommend people eat cheese while they're listening to Under the Influence.
Everything with cheese is better.
Everything with cheese is better. Let's make t-shirts that say that.
Yes.
We are friends. I think you get us.
I think you do.
Everything is better with cheese. I'm going to make one right now. I'm going to design one as soon as you get off.
I need this. Yeah. I need it. Before we kind of jump, because there's other things. I'm like, you said so many things that I want to talk about, including your Halloween costume. Yes. But before that, can you kind of break down mom influencing a little bit? Because you talked about it and just kind of how we got here, because you tried to expose it.
Yeah.
What is it and how are we here?
Yeah, mom influencing. And it started to get really big about 8 years ago. Mom blogging has been a thing since the beginning of the internet. And in fact, it was the mom bloggers that were among the pioneers of blogging. And they were women who were writing really openly and honestly about the good, but a lot of the bad of motherhood, and kind of breaking down the stigmas of how difficult it can be to be a mom. And their sites took off like wildfire. And they were really among some of the most popular bloggers. out there. And I don't think they get enough credit for that in the histories of early blogging and the early internet. I think mom blogging gets very ignored. And then when social media came around, it started morphing into less words and more images, and particularly beautiful images. And Instagram was launched with the intent of being a beautiful photography app. It was supposed to be the Vogue of photography apps. That's what the 10-year-old male founders wanted it to be. So mom blogging, in a lot of ways, the trajectory then moved into this imagery of motherhood that wasn't as much talking about the things that are difficult, but just posting beautiful pictures of it. And in addition to those pictures, adding branded content to it. So selling us things, selling us those beautiful linen nursing dresses, selling us all manner of organic pacifiers and blankets and things none of your kids actually need, because kids would be happy sleeping in a box and playing with a box, is my best wisdom as now a mom of 3. I'm like, literally, they will sleep in a box and they will play with that box. And then you could flip that box over and use it as a table and they'll eat off the box. You just need one box. One box per child. They can't share the box because they want their own box. But
cannot
share the box, but one box per kid.
That's the rule.
That's the rule. That's the rule in my house. Get out of your sister's box. Weird.
You know what? That works for a lot. So, you know what? That's a good golden rule as they grow.
It's a golden rule. Golden rule, people. So, yeah. So, it took off. And now the mom influencing industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry of brands desperate to work with these very popular mom bloggers who can have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of followers. And also they've set up, this kind of idea that this can be a career for a lot of women. And it's a lot harder than you think it's going to be. In the first season, I tried to be a mom influencer. I hired, one of the secrets of it is none of these pictures are taken in real time. They hire professional photographers to take an entire week of pictures and videos, or an entire month of pictures and videos, where they change the kids' outfits constantly and have them do all sorts of different things. And we tried to do that in my house, and everyone put their foot down after about 10 minutes. Everyone was crying.
You know what? I agree with the children on this one.
Yeah, and including my husband. My husband was crying. Everyone was sad. So it was a lot. And we talk a lot about the dangers for these kids too, like content babies, kids that are being used as content. And what are the implications down the road for their privacy, for their self-esteem, for just, generally having their entire lives put on as a show for complete strangers for 18 years. And there are a lot of concerns with that. The first kids of mommy bloggers and early Instagrammers are finally starting to talk about it. And they're saying, I'm not happy. I'm not happy that my potty training was out there on the internet for everyone to see. But again, the flip side of this is that women are making their own money and staying home and taking care of their children, which often feels completely impossible. I've pulled it off by making podcast after podcast and writing books, but I can't imagine being able to juggle. And we have full-time help too with the babies. My mom lives right, in the next town over, and we have a full-time caregiver here who is wonderful, who we love, and we've been working with for 4 years now. We have so much help. And it's still, I couldn't imagine going to an office from 9 to 6 every day and also having these 3 children.
I think, Jo, you and I are very similar in age.
Yeah, I think everyone's my age, by the way. I think that's something that happens after you turn 40, maybe.
Maybe. In my world, everyone's younger than me.
Oh, see, I've started to be I'll start to see 35-year-olds, and I'm we're the same age, and they're we're not. We're not. Yeah.
That's what I get too.
Or 50-year-old women, and I'm we're definitely the same age, and they're we're
that
not.
I hear,
yeah.
I think that for some reason, but when they're younger than me, I'm you're definitely, because I'm I think back when when I was 35. I did do things like that. Today, that makes me tired.
True. I was tired at 35, though. Yeah. Well, I'm 43 now.
Yeah, we're the same age.
We're the same age.
Yeah.
Yay. I knew we were kindred spirits in some ways.
Look at this.
Yeah.
We've been through some things, including seeing this play out. Like we were at the very beginning with the Facebooks.
No, the MySpaces in the beginning.
Yes.
Yeah.
MySpace. I was talking about my Zynga site at one point, which is still, I think, floating out there that I can't find anymore.
I want it so bad.
It'll find it so bad. Yeah.
Well, it'll haunt me, won't it? But like we saw this trend go from the blogs to the Facebook, to the MySpace, to Instagram, to now TikTok, and now we're having this comeback conversation of what happened to those kids. Where are we going back to, like, how they're reacting to also the one extreme of like, this was a beautiful thing because it did give so many women opportunity. Unfortunately, this beautiful thing was limited to very heteronormative cis white women, and so that like there was these big narratives like this could be a good thing, but it's not broadening as we would had hoped with the internet world.
Yeah, it's not, and it's the Instagram algorithm is so specific. It also shows you images of people that it believes are like you, and so or people that it believes are perhaps aspirational to you. Because the algorithm tells you that tells them that will keep you scrolling because we're constantly trying to look for aspirational images, even though it breaks our brains. And so I have a lot of people ask me, they say I never see influencers of color. And the fact is, yes, like the highest paid influencers are shamefully typically these white women who look like the white women that were put in commercials in like the 80s, right? And that's finally starting to be exposed. But the fact is, there are so many awesome mom influencers out there, women of color, queer women. There's like so many. It's just, if you happen to be a white cis woman, you're probably not being shown them by the Instagram algorithm, because the Instagram algorithm doesn't think that they are similar to you. So it's like you have to dig a little deeper, and that sucks, right? Because I want to be shown so many different types of mothers, so many different models of parenting. I want to see two moms. I want to see two dads. I want to see all of these different ways of being a parent in the world, but it only chooses to show you parenting that it thinks is very similar to you.
Yeah. One thing we talk about a lot on the show, to be clear, even though a lot of people mistake this because of the name of the show, Samantha and I are not moms. We don't have kids.
Do people mistake that?
Yes.
All the time.
Really?
We've been put on lists for moms to listen to. Like, no.
Yes.
Oh, it's bad.
We are not mom influencers.
Just because the word mom is in it.
Yeah, I know, but like I would.
In Twitter.
Yeah.
On Twitter, unfortunately, it says Mom Podcast
a
or Mom
Monster
Stuff
Podcast.
Podcast.
No, okay, well, that's dumb. That was a bad Twitter handle.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's a bad Twitter handle.
Yeah.
Like, it was way back when. I think Stuff Mom Never Told You was taken or something.
I'll bet it was, but that's still a bad Twitter handle for your show.
So
I've always thought of it as like your people, human beings in the world with mothers.
Yes. If you read the title, that makes sense.
Yes.
But then like a lot of and then we get advertisers who really think we are too. We've had to, we not had to, but we advertise, which we don't mind because we still obviously want to talk about mothers because they are a part of this conversation.
In the world.
But like the fact that we're not, like I'm not excluding that, but at the same time I'm like, yeah, but we're not experts. We don't know. I was a nanny, yes, and I worked with children. That was my whole like field as a social worker. I worked with children, but I'm like, that doesn't mean I know what it's like to be a mother. I can be a caretaker, but not a mother. That is completely different.
But again, like, being a caretaker also hard. Also a pain. It's all a pain in the ass, to be honest. I love my children so much, but they're a lot.
That's honest. I like it.
Well. So, yes, we are not mothers, but we do talk about motherhood a lot on the show. And we had a friend of the show, guest, Bridget, come on, and she did a whole thing about influencing and how it impacts children. she talked about that. But one of the things I find really interesting about this conversation is there's sort of a dichotomy and a complexity and a nuance with, yes, there is a power of showing the mess of motherhood. There's an absolute power of talking about that, not having this perfect thing, because the pressure for so long that we've seen in all kinds of media is to be the perfect mother, that you're never mad at your kids, you never have this anger. But at the same time, it's also like you're bringing the kids to show in that mess. So it's sort of like the complexity there of there is something that is really helpful in that. But what are the ways to do that without harming the kids in question?
Without harming them. Absolutely. I mean, I think about everything that I say, and I post way less of my kids than I ever did before since I started reporting on the impact of them emotionally, psychologically, and also just the creepiness of strangers following you on the internet. My rule is that before I post, I look at the picture and I'm like, if I would not walk up to the creepiest dude in Starbucks, like the guy who's like sitting there staring at his phone, drooling a little bit, if I wouldn't show this picture to that dude and be like, do you want to look at this picture of my children? Then I will not post it on social media, because that is clearly my audience. And so I do post a lot less, but I mean, like I said, I talk about them all the time. I'm like, my kids are filthy animals, which they are. So I also think I'm like, all right, am I saying anything that I would be uncomfortable if they heard me say about them? And no, like I tell them, like, you guys are filthy animals and I'm very tired from being your mother. And so I think those things are okay. But there's other lines that I see crossed all the time, and I try not to be judgmental. Like I think it's creepy to post pictures of your kids when they're sleeping. I do. Just like, they're so innocent and they don't know what you're doing. Like potty training pictures and videos will come back to haunt them later, or they'll just be embarrassed. I was talking to a parenting expert, or a social media parenting expert the other day, and she said, even things as little as posting a picture of your 8-year-old in their footy pajamas with their stuffed animals, they might not want you to do that because their friends might not think they still sleep with stuffed animals or footy pajamas. And what if their friends saw that? So, putting yourself in your kids' shoes. But I do agree that I think it's important to share the hard parts of motherhood and the messiness, because the internet has just gone too far into making it seem like we have to be perfect all the time, and perfect and beautiful, and also smart and brave and funny and just the best and also sexy. And so, I try to be really honest that, like, I love my kids so much more than I thought I would love having kids. Like, I was never a person that was like, oh my gosh, I must procreate, but I love them. And now there's 3 of them, which is way more children than I expected to be in my house. But I'm also exhausted and it's hard. And I wouldn't not be their mother for anything, but like sometimes I also leave and I go on vacation without them and my husband, and that's really nice. So,
and that's very fair.
Yeah, it's important. I have to leave. That's when I show up at your house with cheese plates. But I think it's a double-edged sword. Like, how much should we post about our lives as mothers, and how much should we protect our children? And it's something everyone needs to figure out for themselves. But also, I do think that these companies that are just making money off of the images of our children, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, really should put more guardrails in place about what kinds of images of children are allowed. And also then how early children themselves are allowed to be on social media.
Yeah. There's a whole different level of conversation when it comes to who has access, who has control, who's making money. And now with AI, it's even scarier because people are able to use images to create their own fantasy world. We recently talked with one of the, I guess they work with one of the bigger AI companies right now, imaging companies. And I have someone that I know has like worked with them as well. And the amount of real images they can backtrack to see some of the images that are on their AI, and no one's stopping them. No one's stopping them. Saying like there's no litigation or law saying that they can't use it. So that's even scarier. And that's something that people need to realize. I don't think when as the internet started and we were like, this is cool, we can share things with our friends, ever thought that this would be the point that it could become. No, we didn't. And I think about that now too. And that is something I did not think about even 6 months ago, that every time I post an image of my child, that image will likely be used by AI in some way, shape, or form. Right.
Yeah.
Which is scary.
Which is scary. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is a whole different conversation.
A whole different conversation. And also everything is, I mean, when that list came out from the Atlantic recently of the books that AI was using, or that these companies were using to train their AI machines, 4 of my books were on there. And my first thought was, what was wrong with my other books?
Oh, wow.
Not good
I'm the
enough
same
for
way.
you,
I'm like,
eh?
wait, did you not? For
good
us, it'd be
enough,
like, wait, we're not cool enough to be on there? All right, that's fine.
Fine. But yeah, it's terrifying. I think, our children's faces can be used to train AI or to make deep fakes of our children. I heard some really scary stories from influencers with large followings where strangers had tried to imitate them because they knew enough about them and their kids to try to pull their kids out of school.
Oh, wow.
But they know it because you post the first day of school picture. They know the kid's teacher. They know where they go to school. They know what they like and what they don't like. They have a picture of it and they have a picture of the parents and they know everything about the parents. So yeah, it's creepy. It's a creepy, creepy, dark place.
It is. It is. Oh, speaking of creepy dark places,
my favorite.
This is my transition. Because also I looked into your Substack, and one of the things that we've talked about recently is a lot about Christian nationalism in our country. We've talked about religious trauma in itself.
Yeah.
And of course, that brings us to the conversation of moms and tradwives. Yes, we had this whole, we went to the red pill of everything. And you have been talking about tradwives as well as, in fact, if you have a chance, go, if you're not already following Jo, you need to follow her, both Substack and Instagram, to look at these amazing costumes that she has created. You've done an amazing job. I loved your descriptor about having the helmet, the bike helmet, as your belly.
It was a bike helmet
so
as
genius.
my belly. Yeah.
It was so good. And then, by the way, I loved your book being the baby. It was
the book reveal video.
All these things.
The book reveal.
Yeah,
so here's
loved it.
a crazy thing. So I will say, for under the influence of the podcast, I have been talking about tradwives for the past 2 weeks. These mainly pretty conservative Christian influencers who are submissive to their husbands. They have all of these rules of I don't do anything without asking my husband permission. I don't have my own finances. I don't work outside the home. Very devoted to being in the home and raising children. And I like to make the distinction that is very different than a stay-at-home mom. I respect the out of stay-at-home moms. You are the CEO of a household. That is a hard job. Tradwife is not stay-at-home mom. They're very, very different things. We've been talking about a lot of them. And they're very into homesteading. They make a lot of their own food from scratch, but they also project all of these, what I think can be very dangerous values. A lot of them are anti-vaxxers. A lot of them are very anti-LGBTQ. There are, behind all of the beautiful baked sourdough loaves, there are some nefarious influences there. And I've been talking about it so much. I was like, well, this is obviously my Halloween costume. What else would I be for Halloween? And so I put on a plaid nap dress, and I stuffed a lot of them are pregnant constantly. They have a lot of content babies because they get more attention every time they get pregnant. And also they likely don't believe in birth control. And so, yeah, there's that part of it. And so I was like, I looked like I was 13 months pregnant with this bike helmet. In my Spanx, under my nap dress. And then I made an Instagram frame to go around me.
Yes.
But it was really funny because that is a costume, and I couldn't carry the Instagram frame. I had a cardboard cutout of #tradwife. I couldn't carry it while I was trick-or-treating with 3 kids. And so it was a hard costume to explain to people. And a lot of people just assumed I was pregnant and offered to get me a chair. And I'm like, no, I'm a conservative Christian influencer. And they're like, oh.
What?
Okay. And then it didn't help that then I was carrying a can of beer down the street and I forgot that I had this pregnant belly. And so then people are really looking at me. And I'm like, it's Halloween.
Yes.
Everyone's drinking here. And then I'm like, they think I'm pregnant. So, it was a great costume. But as I was dressed up, I was like, I know that this will break my Instagram feed because the Instagram algorithm loves pregnant bellies. They love pregnant bellies. They love it when you say that a baby was just born, birth announcements. They love newborns. So I was like, what if I with it? Because my book posts about Sicilian Inheritance like get like moderate attention because Instagram doesn't think that's interesting. And so I'm like, what if I pretend I'm giving birth to my book? And so I do that as like a book reveal. I originally had like a whole home birth like video that I was gonna do, and I'm like, it's too much. It's too much. And my husband's like, it's already too much. Stop. And I'm like, you know who you married. It's okay.
You knew what you
were getting into. I wrote a book about our first year of marriage, but yeah, but then I did do a book reveal of me holding the book like it was a newborn baby, and my Instagram feed went wild. It's not just that people liked it, like, and people liked it because it was funny, it was a joke, and like a lot of my friends liked it, but you can look at the insights and the statistics, and Instagram showed it to more people outside my feed than it's ever shown to people outside my feed. It chose to share that content, and I think that's what's interesting. Like, it chooses to give you more reach if you are this constantly pregnant woman showboating your newborn baby. And that's a problem. And that's something that we should all talk about.
That's too much work.
It's too much work.
Instagram won't have to worry about me doing that. That's okay. I'll just be unknown. It's okay. We're good.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Back to the trad wives, because it's a fascinating conversation.
Yeah.
We had that conversation about a lot of part of the reason that they're having so many children is part of their conspiracy could lead to the fact that they think that the supreme race is dying off. So now more white people need to be having babies. And that being a part of that conversation, the pipeline from being a yoga mom to trad wives is shorter than you would expect.
Shorter than you would expect.
Can you kind of talk about all of that?
There's something also called soft girls on the TikToks and the Instagrams. I'm so old. And like the TikToks.
I love it. My language.
And soft girls are soft girls are very similar to, and not all the language is so confusing. And I'm constantly convinced I'm going to get canceled at this point in time. I'm like, I don't care. But I'm like, I'll go do something else. It's fine. If you cancel me, I'll become like a dog walker or something. I don't give a shit. But I just want to say what I want. But so there's soft girls who say, I want to drop out of the workforce. I don't want to hustle. I don't want to be your girl boss. I'm just going to like do my yoga and my Pilates all day and like meditate and lay in the grass with my lover, and stay at home girlfriends who are the trad wife version of a girlfriend where they live to serve their boyfriend. And there's all these videos of like, my boyfriend takes me on expensive vacations if I pack for him and if I do all of this stuff, and like videos of them cleaning the house all day and cooking for the boyfriend all day. And that does seem to then evolve often into the trad wife, submissive wife lifestyle. And like you said, there is this undercurrent of, restoring the patriarchy, restoring a very male-dominated white world. Yes, you should have more white babies. Why aren't you out there procreating for the race? And it's a dark, scary rabbit hole to go down. And I think the messaging is so hard to parse sometimes because it comes in a beautiful package. And that's what I think is the most dangerous about it. And when I say beautiful, I mean, not even beautiful in my definition, but in this aesthetic that the internet likes. And so it comes in that package that's like, you too could stay at home and look like this and have all of your lovely, quiet children running all over the place. Why would you ever want to be on the birth control pill? And meanwhile, I'm like, do you want to look at my house? Because that'll make you get a vasectomy. I mean, there's a reason Nick finally got snapped. He's like, we're not doing this again. We didn't think it was going to happen the third time. We were old when that happened. Thought we were just old. But
that's perfect.
No, never too old, apparently, to make a third baby in Fargo, North Dakota. But it's a scary part of the internet, and also a fascinating one. Like I have so many people that listen to Under the Influence or follow the Substack. They're like, I didn't know anything about this. Screw you. I've now lost hours of my life going down this rabbit hole. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Sorry, not sorry. I mean, now that I see it, everyone will see it.
Right.
Oh,
We all suffer together.
we all suffer together. Yes, we suffer equally.
Yes. Yes. And I think listeners, you should definitely go check out Under the Influence, because you do talk a lot about mom influencing, but you also talk about cancer influencing, or just various ways like trad wives and all these ways in which the internet is harmful in ways that you think like there are benefits to it, but also these real dark sides, because people are trying to make money ultimately. Like, they're trying to make money.
Ultimately, the goal for most people is money.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like, I think that's just what everyone has to remember. I think you can still enjoy social media, but you have to think about who makes money off what.
Yes.
Right.
Mhm.
So and I, like you mentioned, I just did an episode on cancer influencing, and I had on this woman, Kelly, who was diagnosed with breast cancer, and she started following a lot of cancer influencers. And at first it was great because she's like, oh my gosh, like there's a community here, and that should be wonderful. And she was getting, tips on diet and tips on coping with different kinds of chemo and things like that. Again, good things, right? And then all of a sudden, she just kept following more people, and the advice that she was getting was very conflicting. There were people who were telling her not to do traditional treatment, that doctors were the devils, convincing her to essentially eat nothing but raw vegetables all the time, so that she just had a fear of any other kind of food. And it got to be too much. And she said she saw a lot of people in the cancer community reject a lot of traditional treatments. And then she saw some of them even pass away. And she's like, these influencers have so much power, and none of it is checked. No one is saying, hey, you're an expert in this. Go forth and talk. It's just like anyone can say anything they want on the internet.
Yeah. And that's is terrifying, and has been the case. Lawsuits have been brought against people, but it's true. Like, you trust people that you see online, you form these parasocial relationships. And if they're telling you like, oh no, I'm with you, this is community, buy this, it worked for me. But if there's no checks on that, if they're just saying that because they're going to get that paycheck, then it's irresponsible and dangerous.
Yes, irresponsible and dangerous. Exactly. Oh, guys, we went from cheese plates to irresponsible and dangerous dark places of the internet.
We did. We
This is
need a
kind of how the
cheese
show
plate.
goes for us.
We should all get a cheese plate after this.
Let's all just go eat cheese. Let's all go eat cheese and drink wine in a dark room.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just gonna whisper these things
In pajama pants. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm wearing pajama pants right now. I haven't gotten out of my pajamas today.
Oh, me
That
either.
is how
it's
classy
cold
I am.
in Atlanta right now.
It's cold in Philly right now,
I'm
like
sure
real
it is.
cold.
I have a beanie on,
Yeah.
so yeah.
I will be doing something in Atlanta for when the Sicilian Inheritance comes out. So we will
Bringing us cheese plates.
Oh, well, I mean, there's that. That's the reason I'm coming. But then I may also
Obviously
be doing a book event and a live Under the Influence podcast event down there. So we're planning all these things. So you will have to come and be on the show with me.
Let us know.
Well, we might not be on the
Come
show.
on the
but we're
show.
definitely
Everyone
gonna
gets to come
watch
on the
you
show. Yeah.
and eat
cheese and drink wine. Yeah.
Perfect.
Follow Jo Piazza. She'll bring you cheese. Yeah.
She'll bring you cheese.
Yeah.
That's
That
the
will get
lesson
all
I've
the
just
followers.
learned. She endorses
That will get
everything with cheese and
all
wine.
of the followers.
It would,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
Well, it's gotten all the followers and me as the best friend. I'm like, yeah,
I
I'm
know. I'm
coming.
really.
love
Yeah,
that.
I've got you.
Cheese
now.
and wine, please.
I've got you now. Mhm.
No.
I know how to
Done.
make friends
I'm
and
trapped.
influence people.
You've learned.
For me, it's just to stalk them and tell them we're
Yeah.
friends until they
I
believe
know.
me.
I do the
But-
same thing.
The cheese approach is
Yeah.
better.
I mean, better.
Actually, that's how I made friends with Anney.
You also do the cheese approach. Samantha.
I did. That's how I got friends with Anney.
It's true. And now she's on
I
the
did.
show.
I had 2 giant platters of
Now
cheese.
she's on the show. Look at it.
And now I'm on the
Yeah.
show.
It's
Yeah,
effective.
Cheese is the way, y'all. Cheese is the way.
That is a pun. I
It
won't
is.
go.
Cheese is the way.
Anyway.
Cheese is the way. Yes. Yes.
We did have more questions for you, but we've already taken up so much of your time. So you'll just have to come back. You'll just have to come
I'll come back. Guys, I will always come back. I love it here.
Okay.
Love it.
Awesome.
I know. I think we've been talking for like a good 2 hours.
We've been talking for an hour and a half, guys.
Gotta keep going.
Keep going.
So many
Never.
things.
Actually, I have to go pick up my kids from school at some point. So,
Oh, yeah. Forgot
Well,
you have children.
all right then.
you know,
Can
they're
you
always picking everything up.
I would never say that.
Well, can you tell the good listeners where they can find you, what they can look forward to from you?
Yeah, of course. Like we talked about a lot, the Sicilian Inheritance is coming out in April, but you can all pre-order it now, which really matters because it determines where we go for events. And like I said, those events are going to have wine and cheese. So order your copy now. Let me know. I'm on the Instagram at Jo Piazza Author. I always think that it's ironic that the best place to find me is Instagram because I hate it so much. But it is. It works. And until there's something that works, you know, in the same way, I'll just keep doing it. But I also have a Substack, Over the Influence, that is linked to the Under the Influence podcast, which comes out twice weekly and is everywhere that you find your podcasts.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you so much for being here.
Guys, this was so fun. I can't wait to see you in person. We're going to have so much fun when I come to Atlanta.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
And if you would like to find us listeners, you can. We have an email at stuffmediamomstuff@iheartmedia.com. You can find us on Twitter at momstuffpodcast or on Instagram and TikTok at Stuff I'll Never Told You. We do have a TeePublic store where you can get merchandise, and we also have a book. You can get it wherever you get your books or audiobooks. Thanks as always to our super producer Christina, our executive producer Maya, and our contributor Joey.
Thank you.
And thanks to you for listening. Stuff I Never Told You is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, you can check out the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.